Ever think of a overkill way to cool down your PC without investing in an all-in-one or closed loop or a honking big heatsink? Those are great ideas, but in this case that you guys saw in my current build video, it's kind of terrible for airflow. So what I decided to do, because I used to have 6 whole drives near on top of the SSD, so it was the SSD and 5 drives, and then now I did drop the temps in this PC by 5 degrees by moving all those drives into the topic of this video, a home server, which I've dubbed Homonculus, which is a theme that goes on all my builds. I like myths and mythology and all those weird little legends. I mean, it's like Ungoheuer, Homonculus, and then my upcoming X99 build is Perun, which is the lightning god or the alt god in Old Wendish and pagan from the Slavic culture. That's their weird god. To start off this build, which you guys can follow along with the link that I'm going to stick like right here somewhere, maybe below my beard, this section, whatever. It's going to be here, and the other link will also be in the description just in case you turned off annotation. The processor I chose to go with this build is a Pentium G3250. You're going to wonder, why did I go with a socket solution instead of, say, an embedded processor? Now, I have future plans to move this to a low power, low voltage Xeon, so that's going to be the future solution for this guy. Advantages of an embedded solution, if I chose to go that way, was extremely low wattage, low power, passively cool, dead silent, basically, besides the noise of the case fans, if you have any in there, and the hard drives running. Now, the cons of an embed solution, you're stuck with that processor, so if something grandiose appeared in 2 months after you bought your embedded solution, well, you either deal with what you bought, which could be great. I mean, so power usage was not a real concern of mine at this time. The heatsink I am using in this build with the G3250 is the stock Intel heatsink. As a lot of other tech channels will tell you, it's fine to use. Now, I could hear the Intel cooler over the stock fans that are in the case. The plan is to move to something like a low profile deep cool cooler or a Sigma Tech, something like that, to put in there and get it to run lower temps. The case I chose for this entire build is a Node 304, and I chose it specifically because of the hard drive bays and the price. Now, the price in the PC part picker link is $84. I bought it for about $70, so I was pretty happy with that. Ideally, I would love to go with the lean NAS solution, but the cost of that right now is prohibitive. But I may move to that eventually and use the Node for something completely different. Now, I have no gripes against the case. The cooling is fine. It's perfectly fine. All my drives sit at their ideal temperatures. They sit about 34 degrees idle and about 40-ish low when they're being used for copying large files. Now, the drives currently in this are 2 Toshiba DT line drives, which are not NAS grade, but in my experience for the last year and a half of these two, they could be used in a low budget NAS for a home. I mean, if you don't want to spend the extra $50 for a NAS drive that has lower power usage, a little bit lower heat, they're ideal. They're perfect for the money. And the last drive is a Western Digital Green 2TB, which I got from a friend. You know, it works, it stores all my stuff. And next thing you're gonna wonder is, well, are you gonna RAID these drives? Honestly, I would like RAID, but at the same time, I prefer the reliability of a single drive failing in a system instead of an entire RAID going down because of one drive. And yeah, I know how you can fix that, and it's not a terrible thing, but sometimes it could lose data. And I thought to myself, that's not worth the trouble with this. So my situation, I'm one person, it's fine. 4 or 5 terabyte drives in there, and possibly more if I move to a lean leak case with a SATA card edition in there. With storage space, when I move to the 5 terabytes, I don't care. I don't want a giant pool. I'd rather have those little compartmentalized sections where, you know, what drive is for work, another drive is for backups, another drive is for music, and other bullshit. Now, as you can see in the PC part picker link, I did choose an SSD as the main drive. And there's a reason, because I wasn't going for an embedded solution, and I don't like the static USB images or even a writable USB image. And I'm glad I went that route, because the whole system boots in about a second or two, and it's insane. It boots faster than my AC 1200 router, which is still pretty fast, but I don't know what's going on there, but I love it. Now, that goes on to the topic of me choosing to install Debian over a free NAS or other embedded solution. Was I wanted upgradability. I want to make Linux videos on this thing, and that's what it works out to. That's all I could say on that. It hit exactly what my goals are. And whenever you're doing a build, always look at what you need to buy what you need it for, and any possible future usage. Don't just willy-nilly buy something and be like, well, I spent $4,000 on something I never will need all that power. Onto the motherboard, I chose an ASRock H97M ITX/AC. Now I needed to choose something with a Wi-Fi adapter built in as to reduce cost. I needed something that I can upgrade in the future to a Xeon processor for low power usage. And I wanted something with a PCIe slot. This goes back to the topic of embedded boards, where I could have gone that route, but most of the boards in the $60 to $70 range had 3 or 4 ports, or they had a 2-core processor that was far slower than the G3250, and it had 4 ports plus an mSATA. And it was such a tough thing, but it was a good challenge to find a board at the $70 price tag I paid for this after rebate, and it's absolutely rock solid. It's reliable as hell, and it's a great board. It's a great board for that money. And if you're not looking for something that's Skylake, you want to save a bit of money, I actually recommend this guy a lot. Let's get down to the board and the Wi-Fi adapter again. Now I could have bought, like I said, an embedded solution with a PCIe slot and spent 20 bucks on an Intel, but for 70 bucks I got a Realtek 8820 on this guy, and it's not terrible. I know under Windows it runs fine, but for some reason on Linux it displays strange behavior like disconnecting randomly and all this other nonsense. Now I thought to myself, why was it doing these strange things where it was randomly disconnecting, connecting at low power for some reason? Everything was just wonky as hell. So I went on GitHub, got a firmware that wasn't from the official repository, and it works 100% better. But then the next solution problem was all the wireless managers and network managers weren't playing nice with 2 network IP addresses. Now that's going to be a whole nother video where I talk about private networks in a main network. Now the odd solution with that was, in short, I just uninstalled any GUI manager, made some shell scripts to do everything at boot, and it works perfect now. Nothing drops unless somebody passes by the router with their iPhone or other nonsense, and I'm just like, whoa, gotta do something about that. But it reconnects automatically. Now the power supply I picked out is a Corsair CX430, as I've had great luck with building power supplies. They're well built, they're solid. This one is fully modular, and I needed that for this build, as it's an ITX case and there's limited space. And even with the cables in there, it's a little bit messy. So I do plan on trimming the cables so they're shorter, because that makes a lot of sense if you have an ITX build. Why are you going to use the default stock length power supply cables when they're made for a giant case? So that's the thing to keep in mind, guys, always, that you can do that. And I will make a video on shortening your cables. Currently the system is running about 150, 160 watts with all the drives in there at the moment. And that same wattage will be when I move all these drives to modern 5TB drives. The RAM I picked out in this build, for now, when I was building this, I budgeted it completely, was just 4 gigs of G.Skill DDR3 1300 memory, and it was 20 bucks at the time, and I want to move it to full 16 gigs just so I have all that leg room for whatever I need to do with drive access. Now I was saying the future of this case is going to include a Xeon, 16 gigs of RAM, the 5TB drives, and then of course shorten the cables so they're easier to route in there, and then replace the 8820 Wi-Fi adapter, because I'm not fond of how it runs. It runs a little bit warmer than my Intel and my laptop. And finally, of course, SATA card and the lean case so I could fit more drives in this build. And the SATA card I'm talking about is something with SAS, just so it's more ports for less space on the board. And of course, you know, you can get a short SAS card out there, and it's going to run me a little bit expensive. I know most SAS cards are about 150 to 200 bucks if it's just a host card instead of a controller RAID setup. Because as I said, I'm not interested in RAID, but might do that if I go more than 4 drives in the future, just so I have 4 main drives that are reliable and then 4 RAIDed. With that in mind, as you can see, this whole thing cost me $330, which is a fantastic price. If you're thinking of doing this, it's very simple to do. It's not exact, rocket science, and anybody can do it. Anybody. Alrighty guys, so I'm Max of makshacks. If you've enjoyed this video, do give me a like. Now, if you want to see more weird videos, not just including builds or talking about PCs, but actually showing how to fix speakers, monitors, and other things related to computers, then do click subscribe down below. You guys have fun out there on the internet, but not too much fun, you'll put an eye out. You take care, internet.